I walked in on something I wasn't meant to see. That sentence alone carries the weight of 1,000 shattered pieces, not of glass, but of trust, of love, of every promise that was ever whispered in the quiet dark. I wish I could say it was just a misunderstanding. I wish I could tell you it was all a bad dream, the kind you wake up from, heart-pounding, but safe in the arms of the person you love. But I didn't wake up. Because it wasn't a dream, it was my reality, and I walked right into it. It wasn't dramatic, like in the movies, no screams, no slamming doors, just silence, the kind of silence that doesn't ask questions, because it already knows the answers. I stepped through a door, expecting a familiar scene, maybe laughter, maybe stillness, but instead I found a betrayal so deep, so visceral, that it felt like the ground had opened beneath me. There they were, together, like I was the stranger in my own story, like I was the one intruding. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. My presence alone peeled the mask off their illusion. Their shock couldn't match mine, though. Mine was the kind that leaves you breathless, that cracks your soul down the middle, the kind that rearranges the way you see the world. I had suspected, maybe deep down, I'd been preparing myself for something. But no preparation can shield you from the moment your heart is handed back to you, broken and discarded. And here's the cruel part. It wasn't just them that betrayed me. It was the memory of every touch, every I love you, every lie whispered between what I thought were real moments. I stood there frozen, not just by what I saw, but by the flood of everything I believed up until that second. Because when you walk in on infidelity, you don't just catch someone cheating, you catch your entire history with them collapsing like a house of cards. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But more than anything, I wanted it not to be real. I wanted to close the door and rewind time. Pretend I never saw it. Pretend it was someone else's life I had stumbled into. That's what denial feels like, a desperate clutching at the version of reality that doesn't hurt. But there's no refuge in denial. The truth lingers, whether you speak it or not. And once seen, it can't be unseen. For days I replayed it over and over in my head. Every word unsaid, every hint I ignored. I questioned myself, blamed myself. Maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe I didn't love hard enough, give enough, forgive enough. But here's what I've come to understand. The betrayal was never about me. Their choice wasn't my failure. Their lies weren't my burden to carry. I walked in on something I wasn't meant to see, but maybe, just maybe, I was meant to see it. Not to destroy me, but to set me free. Because that moment, as soul, crushing as it was, tore down the lie I'd been living in. It forced me to confront the truth, not just about them, but about myself. About the way I had silenced my own intuition. About the way I had stayed when the signs were there. About the way I had loved someone more than I loved myself. It's strange, the kind of strength that pain builds in you. When you've been burned that deeply, you start to see what's real. You stop begging for love in places it should have been freely given. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into a version of love that never saw your worth. And slowly, you begin to rebuild. Not to be who you were before, but to become someone wiser, braver, clearer. I no longer look back to that moment with bitterness, though it took time, tears, and the complete unraveling of everything I thought I knew. I look back with clarity, because that was the day I stopped settling for half-truths. That was the day I started choosing myself, piece by broken piece. Healing didn't come overnight. It came with trembling steps, with relapses into grief, with the courage to tell my story without shame. And now, when I speak of love, I don't speak from a place of fantasy. I speak from the ruins I survived. I speak from the wisdom of knowing that loyalty is not a weakness, and trust should never be weaponized. I speak from the fire of someone who walked through betrayal and came out not bitter but reborn, not perfect but painfully, beautifully real. The shock and emotional devastation of betrayal is a feeling unlike any other. It's not just heartbreak, it's a complete disorientation of your emotional compass. One moment, you're living in what feels like a stable reality, built on shared memories, affection, and trust. And the next, everything you believed in is yanked out from under you, leaving you flailing in the air, not knowing how or where you'll land. There is no gradual descent into this kind of pain. It's instantaneous, piercing, and suffocating. You don't even get the grace of preparing for it. It crashes in without knocking, and suddenly you're trying to breathe underwater. That kind of betrayal doesn't just touch the surface. It tears through the foundation of your self-worth. When someone you love cheats on you, it's not only the act itself that wounds. It's the ripple effect, the way it contaminates every past moment you shared. Every "I love you," every time they held your hand, every look across the room that once felt intimate now feels tainted. The betrayal becomes retroactive. You start to wonder when the lies began. You try to pinpoint the moment they started drifting. Were they holding your hand while thinking of someone else? Were their arms around you out of guilt? These questions become a torture device, playing on repeat inside your head. You try to remember your happiest memories together, and instead of joy, you're overwhelmed by nausea, by rage, by shame that you didn't see it coming. The emotional devastation is deeply personal. It attacks not only the bond between you and them, but the bond you have with yourself. You begin to question everything: your intuition, your judgment, your value. If they could do this to you, what does that say about who you are? Did you miss the signs? Did you ignore the warnings? Suddenly, your sense of reality becomes a lie you willingly lived in. That's the cruelty of betrayal. It isolates you from yourself. You don't trust your thoughts anymore. You second-guess your past decisions. You wonder if everyone else saw it but you. It feels like the betrayal turned you into a fool, and that shame is often louder than the grief. The physical reactions are just as intense. It's a whole body experience. Your chest feels tight, your stomach knots, food loses its taste, sleep becomes impossible. Your body reacts to betrayal as if it's trauma, because it is trauma. Emotional betrayal activates the same part of the brain as physical pain. You can literally feel your heart breaking. Sometimes, you find yourself shaking, unable to cry, unable to scream, because the pain is so profound that you become numb. Other times, you collapse under the weight of it, sobbing in places where no one can see you: bathroom floors, darkened bedrooms, the backseat of your car. The devastation is unpredictable. It hits in waves. Some days you think you're okay. You even laugh and you start to feel human again. And then it comes rushing back. The memory, the image, the sound of a voice that once soothed you, now a trigger for anguish. What makes this pain even more unbearable is the betrayal of choice. They didn't have to do it. They weren't forced. They chose it. And that choice says everything. It wasn't a mistake. It was a decision, made despite everything you gave, everything you shared, everything you built together. They stepped outside of your relationship, fully knowing the damage it could cause, and did it anyway. That decision leaves a scar, not just because it hurt, but because it told you you weren't enough for them to stay loyal. It told you that your love, your loyalty, your presence, your sacrifice was not reason enough for them to honor you when you weren't looking. The betrayal often comes from someone you trusted most deeply, someone who knew your vulnerabilities, your fears, your past wounds, and still decided to add another one. That's what deepens the pain, the knowledge that they knew exactly how much it would hurt you, and still they did it. And once it's done, there's no undoing it. You can't erase it, you can't pretend it didn't happen. It's there, burned into your memory like a brand. This kind of devastation doesn't just hurt, it changes you. It alters how you approach love, how you allow people in, how you guard your heart. The damage doesn't end when the relationship does. It echoes into every new connection you try to build, every new trust you attempt to extend. The betrayal may have happened in a single moment, but the fallout, it can last for years. The moment of discovery, when the truth unveils itself with brutal clarity, is a psychological ambush. You're not prepared for it, even if you had suspicions. There's something about catching the truth in its raw, undeniable form that does more than just confirm what you feared. It detonates everything inside you. That single moment, the point where illusion collapses, becomes frozen in time. It sears itself into your memory, every detail etched so vividly that even years later, you can recall the lighting in the room, the exact position of their bodies, the expression on their face when they saw you standing there. It's surreal, almost like you're watching it unfold from outside yourself, as if your brain cannot fully process the betrayal in real time, so it detaches to survive it. It often begins innocently, walking through a door, opening a phone, hearing a name spoken too casually. And then, without warning, your reality fractures. In that instant, you're no longer just a person. You become a witness to the death of your own story. You feel the shift before your brain catches up. Your heart knows something is wrong. Your breath catches, your skin flushes, your gut twists, and then the truth steps forward unapologetic, wearing the face of the person you loved, the person you trusted, the person who swore they'd never hurt you. The image sticks with you, the visual evidence of betrayal, the unmistakable intimacy shared with someone else, the sound of their voice saying things they once said to you. You may try to unsee it in the following days, but your mind won't let you. It replays the moment like a loop you can't pause. The pause doesn't come because your brain is trying to protect you, trying to make sense of what your heart has already felt. There's confusion, because how could this be happening? How could the person you built a life with, shared dreams with, be the same one dismantling it right in front of you? The betrayal isn't abstract anymore. It's not a theory, a suspicion, a fear. It's real, it has weight, it breathes, it speaks, it looks you in the eye. There's also that split, second tension between confronting and freezing. You don't know whether to scream, to turn away, or to demand an answer. You don't even know what words to use, because nothing feels sufficient to express the magnitude of what you've just seen. The silence in those first seconds can be more powerful than 1,000 arguments. It's a silence filled with endings, a silence heavy with everything that should have been, now disintegrating into what is. That moment divides your life into two halves, before and after. Before, when you were still protected by the illusion. After, when the illusion is shattered, and all you have left are jagged edges. What makes this moment especially cruel is how immediate the isolation feels. The person who would normally be your comfort in moments of confusion or pain is suddenly the cause of it. You're left alone in that room, even if physically you are not. They may say your name, try to speak, to explain, but their words are meaningless now. You are beyond the reach of their voice. In that moment, something inside you closes. It's a door that may never reopen the same way again. You realize that no apology can undo what you've just seen. That no explanation can erase the image burned into your mind. You become aware that some truths are final. Then comes the sensory flood. Your body takes in everything. The smell in the room, the flickering of the lights, the sound of a footstep, a gasp, a stammer. All of it becomes evidence. Your brain records it like crime scene data, because on some level, that's exactly what it is. The crime scene of trust violated. And once you leave that space, you carry that moment with you everywhere. It changes how you see the world. It makes you suspicious of peace. It makes you question comfort, because now you know how quickly it can all be torn apart. The other person doesn't even react with shame. Sometimes they look surprised, annoyed, even angry at being caught. And that stings in a whole different way. You expected guilt, remorse, some kind of recognition of the pain they just inflicted. But instead, you may receive indifference, or worse, justification. And in that moment, you're reminded that betrayal doesn't just kill trust, it murders empathy. You begin to understand that while this moment will define your pain, it may not carry the same weight for them. The moment of discovery is not just about seeing the act itself. It's about watching the mask fall. It's about realizing that the person you thought you knew had a version of themselves they kept hidden from you. And in that moment, you meet them again, not as the person you loved, but as a stranger. A stranger who made a choice that cost you everything. The struggle between confronting the truth and clinging to denial is one of the most excruciating emotional battles a person can experience after discovering infidelity. Even when the evidence is undeniable, when you've seen it with your own eyes, heard the lies unravel, or caught the messages exchanged in secrecy, there's still a part of you that refuses to fully believe it. Denial is not weakness, it's survival. It steps in like a shield, trying to protect you from the full weight of the truth before you're emotionally equipped to carry it. In many ways, it's your mind's last attempt to hold on to something familiar, something safe. Because once you accept what happened, there's no going back. There's no more pretending. At first, denial doesn't always look like disbelief. Sometimes it shows up as rationalizing their behavior. You start looking for reasons that make their betrayal more palatable. Maybe they were going through something. Maybe you weren't showing them enough affection. Maybe it was a one-time mistake. Maybe it didn't mean anything. You bend and twist every detail in your mind, trying to make it make sense. Because what actually happened shouldn't make sense. You knew this person, you loved this person, and they loved you. Didn't they? Denial feeds you half truths so you don't have to choke on the full one. Sometimes you find yourself defending them to others, even while breaking inside. You don't want to talk about it, not because you're at peace, but because speaking it aloud would make it real. So you keep it in. You tell yourself you're just processing, that you need time. And while that's true, the deeper truth is that you're trying to delay the moment where the illusion finally collapses. Because confronting the truth means confronting the fallout, the end of the relationship as you knew it, the grief that will come with it, the decisions you'll have to make afterward. And denial keeps you suspended in a place where none of that is necessary, yet. There's also shame. Shame becomes the silent accomplice of denial. You don't want to feel like a fool, like the last one to know. You don't want people to look at you with pity. So you stay quiet, and in that quiet, denial grows. You might even start acting as though nothing happened. You go through the motions, cook dinner, answer texts, smile in public, but underneath, you're unraveling. You're torn between the version of the relationship you once had and the version you're now forced to face. There's a dissonance so sharp, it almost feels like you're living two lives. One where you're still trying to believe in them, and one where you know they broke something that may never be fixed. What makes this struggle even more painful is how deeply it's tied to hope. Hope doesn't die easily, not when it's rooted in love. You hope it was a mistake. You hope they'll come to their senses. You hope there's still a chance. You hope you can return to the life you had before you found out. But with every passing day, that hope becomes more fragile. It begins to feel like a rope you're holding onto while dangling over a cliff. And every time you ignore the truth, you grip that rope a little tighter, until your hands bleed. There's also fear. Fear of loneliness. Fear of starting over. Fear of losing years of your life. That fear can make denial feel comforting. If you pretend it didn't happen, if you pretend it wasn't that bad, maybe you won't have to lose everything. Maybe you won't have to feel that grief. So you silence your gut. You shrink your voice. You smile through the ache. But eventually, the truth demands to be felt. It starts to bleed through the cracks in your denial. A song, a scent, a slip of the tongue. Suddenly you're right back in that moment of discovery, and denial can't save you from it. The truth and denial exist side by side. You believe them in the morning, cry in the shower, and numb yourself by night. You look at their face and search for signs of who they used to be, but all you see now is the person who hurt you, and the person you're terrified to let go of. That's what makes the struggle so paralyzing, knowing what happened, but not yet knowing who you are without them. And yet, deep down, you know that holding on to denial only delays the inevitable. Sooner or later, you'll have to choose. Live in the lie or walk through the pain of truth. And that choice isn't simple. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, through breakdowns and revelations, through tears shed in silence, through moments where you suddenly realize you can't unsee what you saw or unknow what you now know. You begin to realize that confronting the truth isn't what destroys you, it's what begins to free you. But before that freedom comes, you must survive the war inside your heart, between the comfort of what was and the clarity of what is. Healing after infidelity is not a linear journey. It's a jagged, winding path filled with regressions, painful revelations, moments of false hope, and slow, silent breakthroughs. When someone shatters your trust, the damage doesn't stay confined to the relationship. It leaks into every corner of your emotional being. It wounds your sense of self, your faith in love, and your ability to feel safe in vulnerability. And because of that, recovery isn't just about moving on from them. It's about rediscovering yourself in the ruins they left behind. It's about piecing together the parts of you that were broken in the betrayal, while learning how to walk again with scars you never asked for. One of the most difficult parts of healing is confronting the silence that follows, the absence, the stillness. The space once filled with shared laughter, messages, late-night conversations, and whispered dreams is now hollow, echoing only with the memory of what used to be. That silence can feel louder than any fight ever did. It forces you to sit with your pain, to stare into the raw wound, to accept that something that once meant everything is now over or forever changed. There are no shortcuts through that silence. You have to walk through it, sometimes crawling, sometimes screaming, often alone. There will be days when you wake up and for a moment, you forget. You reach for your phone, you expect a message. Your heart leaps at a sound you once associated with their presence. And then you remember. The truth hits all over again. The betrayal, the lies. The moment you walked in on something that should have never been. And just like that, you're right back where the pain lives. That's the cruel nature of healing. It revisits you in unexpected ways. You'll think you're doing fine, only to be undone by a scent, a song, or a place you once shared. Those moments are not failures. They are reminders that healing is not the erasure of pain, but the slow weaving of strength around it. In the aftermath, you begin to build emotional boundaries, not walls, but lines drawn from self-respect. You learn that trust is no longer something you give freely. It has to be earned, and you become hyper-aware of red flags, not out of paranoia, but because your heart now remembers what it costs to ignore them. You become fiercely protective of your peace, more selective with your vulnerability, and though at times you mourn the innocence you lost, the wide, open heart that once loved without fear, you also begin to honor the wisdom you've gained. That's part of the healing too, realizing that the pain taught you something you never wanted to know, but desperately needed to understand. Grief becomes a companion during this process, not just grief for the person you lost, but for the version of yourself that existed before the betrayal. You grieve the trust you used to give so easily. You grieve the dreams you built together now dismantled. You grieve the future you thought was certain. And yet, even in that grieving, a quiet strength begins to grow. You realize that surviving the pain didn't destroy you. It revealed your resilience. You start to feel moments of lightness, moments where laughter doesn't feel like a betrayal to your sadness. Moments where peace returns, not because the pain is gone, but because you've learned to carry it differently. You start to let go, not because they apologized, not because you've forgotten, but because you choose not to let their actions define your capacity to love or be loved. You understand that forgiveness isn't for them. It's a release for yourself, and it doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes, forgiveness is closing the door with grace and walking away with dignity. Sometimes it's simply saying, "You hurt me, and I didn't deserve it, but I refuse to carry this pain any longer." Healing also means rebuilding trust, not just with others, but with yourself. That may be the hardest part. You begin to believe again in your intuition, your worth, your ability to make healthy choices. You stop blaming yourself for someone else's dishonesty. You stop trying to rewrite the past or fix what you didn't break. You let the truth live without letting it consume you. Slowly, you start showing up for yourself in ways they never did. You treat yourself with the kindness they withheld. You speak to yourself with the love you used to give away too freely. And with each step forward, you start becoming someone new, not hardened, but stronger, not bitter, but wiser, not untouched by betrayal, but undefeated by it.